Our guns share their bounty with the enemy, and it has gone on for days, as it should, preparing for the main push. The sound of thunder, that is what some call it, of course. They are not from Krieg. You can tell instantly. This one statement shows it all. Because what is a reference to thunder but the revelation that you have lived under an open sky, a world where you can breathe air unaided, without concern or danger. A soft world, and soft people come from them. So when I hear that phrase, I want to spit. Weaklings. Weaklings. They do not know devotion. They do not know discipline. They do not know courage. They are supine whelps who merely slow us down. Us, the greatest regiments the human race has ever seen. The death Korp of Krieg. The greatest warriors outside the Emperor's own angels of death, his Astartes, his space marines. But they are modified, enhanced, engorged, and empowered. Are they really human anymore? Anyone else? Weak. Perhaps not Acadians or Australians. Maybe not Catachans. But even they are pale imitations of our grandeur. For we are the faithful, despite our failings. The debt our forebears foisted on us when they turned from the Emperor's light. We have spent our life's blood over countless generations in his name, to expunge that stain on our honor, on our very souls. Even so tarnished, knowing we are the ancestors of traitors, I still believe that none can even come close to comparing with our devotion, our sanctity. For we are the body of the Emperor in his stead. We stand on the walls of his Imperium and hold back the tides of filth. The Xenos, the traitors, the witches and mutants. There are others I would praise. Sisters of battle, inquisitors, scions. But even so, they are elite units with elite training and elite weaponry, deployed in small units for specific jobs, to destroy specific targets. They are the scalpel, we're the shovel. We are not the same, so cannot be compared so. When all else fails, and the local militias are shown to be as worthless as we know them to be, then, and only then, are we called. Not to fight battles, nor strategic strikes, but to win wars. We fight them, and we win them. All for the greater glory of the Emperor and his eternal realm. His Imperium of mankind. It is why I stand in this trench with hundreds of thousands of my countrymen. Why I wear my gas mask as a second skin, barely remembering what others around me look like. Some days, I forget what I look like without it on. We are ready, and unlike every other formation in this assault, we are without fear, without hesitation. For we are the death Korp of Krieg, and we are warriors. We fear not dying in the name of our Emperor. We only fear that our sacrifice will not be enough, that our paltry lives are too shabby and mean for our intent. The Caxons bark out, and I snap to attention. It is time. I pray to the Master of Mankind behind my mask as we step up and prepare. It will be a straight engagement, a simple affair. We know where they are. From our shelling, they know where we are about to attack. So they will bring the full force of their weapons against our sally. And it will not be enough. It is never enough. Oh, they may beat back an assault once, twice, or even 3 times, but they will fail. They will not fight hard enough, fast enough, stand long enough to stop our onward march. They will balk at the rate of attrition, Their men will lose heart, their lines will buckle. Their weaklings will flee, leaving behind only those worth killing. And we will roll over their emplacements, their positions, their fortifications. We will throw ourselves on barbed wire to allow the men behind to walk over our bodies towards their lines. We will charge their gun nests, knowing that though hundreds may die, one of us will get to the foot of the emplacement and then hurl grenades and explosives into their bunker to silence those inside. We will bring up assault squads and their flamers. We'll sweep the enemy trenches and engulf all who cower beneath their ramparts in cleansing holy promethium. We will go into their warrens and tunnels and hides, and root them out and slay every last one of them, no matter how long it may take. We will not stop. We will not relent. We'll not give clemency nor respite for even a moment. For these things we face offend the God Emperor. Their mere existence in his galaxy offends him. And in his name, we will exterminate them like the vermin they are. I had the singularly unpleasant experience of listening to the other officers once. The ones from other regiments, chittering and yapping away while I waited for our commissar to be done with them. Vacuous, insipid nonentities. I have no idea how he could stand it, listening to them. Despite not being of Krieg, he has shown he is actually one of us, not one of them. They all bleated about casualties and sustainability, supplies and scouting, like scared children. Weak. Barely a word about the enemy, barely a word about fighting them, barely a word about the next push. Pointless stuffed shirts festooned with metal trinkets that did nothing but display their cowardice. Because if you have fought in all the battles your brooches proclaim and come out alive, then either you are blessed, or miles from the front, or you are a liar. And I had a firm feeling that none of the popinjays strutting around the command staff were blessed. So a gaggle of cowards and liars were directing this war. Pathetic. No wonder we've been deployed here. Not a spine amongst them. The klaxons rouse again, and scream their calls across our lines, and then echo across no man's land. Even if they are too stupid to understand the intention of our barrages, the fury of our guns, then the wailing of the klaxons should do it. They should be ready to engage us when we advance. Do not get me wrong. I do not wish to be ended in a field of churned mud. I'm not stupid. But will I charge across that broken sod? The mud and pools of water that suck a man under? Will I charge directly at their heaviest emplacements, that spit out death at a rate these other regiments would flee from? If I make it across the lands between us, will I hit their lines and engage any who are there, no matter their size, weapons, or strength? Yes. Yes, I will. And I will do it without complaint, without hesitation, without qualm. Because I know that my Emperor, my God, is watching me. I know he will see how I died, but also how I lived. And I know that if I can tip the scales, can fight hard enough, can show my unrestrained sacrifice in his name, then perhaps, just perhaps, one day he will take me unto his side. And on that day, when all of the souls of Krieg's sons and daughters are brought unto his bosom, when the sins of our forebears have been atoned, and on that day, it will be Krieg who sit at his right hand, as lauded as his own sons. For we are the death corps of Krieg. Our gift is death. To the enemy, and to our Lord, our gift is death. Welcome, gentle listener. I am Baldermort, your faithful servant, and I wish to introduce you to the important factions, forces, and units of the Warhammer 40k universe. The grim darkness of the far future, where there is no time for peace, there is only time for war. If you are a regular gentle listener, then I would ask that you check that you are still subscribed and have notifications on. If not, then do consider subscribing, as then you will not miss out on ongoing narratives, if that sort of thing appeals to you. And today, we had to return to the second most fanatical of all of the regiments of the Astra Militarum, the Imperial Guard. Now I do have what I am told is a rather nice entry on the history of Krieg, which I was helped with by many in the law circuit on YouTube. So if you do not know the history of this ghoulishly enamouring regiment, then do hit the description and watch that one first. But we did not speak of the way in which they recruit and operate. So in celebration of the newest range forthcoming from Games Workshop, let us rectify that little omission. And so, as usual, for the very basics, let us lean on existing wisdom. To quote, Regimental Recruitment and Training. Recruitment for members of the regiments of the Death Korp of Krieg is similar to many other imperial worlds throughout the Imperium, and conscription depends on varying circumstances. Though their harsh training methods, combat doctrines, and regimental organization are not in themselves unique amongst the units of the Imperial Guard, the Death Korp regiments are both unorthodox and extreme in their application. Tested, selected, and relentlessly trained almost from birth for their appointed role as Imperial Guardsmen, the rates of fatality and injury during training are high amongst Death Korp recruits, catastrophically so. To ensure that only the toughest and best make it into the new regiment, training is brutal, and quickly weeds out the weak and unworthy, for fear and weakness are not tolerated. The minds and characters of the young prospective guardsmen are purposefully broken down and remade stronger, just as their bodies are trained to withstand hardship and endure suffering that would kill other men, a task already begun by the mere fact of living a life on blighted Krieg. Amongst the wreckage of the old radiation-blasted battlefields, the training regiments march, dig trenches, clear minefields, and fight battles against other cadets. Only those that endure are judged fit enough to take their place as members of the Death Korp. For this reason, the regiment is able to maintain its famous standard of discipline and selflessness in combat. Gas masks are conventionally viewed as a second skin, as soldiers are trained to permanently operate with them if required. Fear of failing the Imperium and one's comrades, and a ceaseless devotion to duty, honor, and the Emperor are instilled in new recruits to make certain that they stand their ground in combat under any situation. Mental conditioning is the key part of their training, so Death Korp troops are prepared for the myriad horrors to be found on the Imperial battlefield and beyond. Combat Doctrine. During its Great Civil War, in order for Krieg society to survive, it could not afford to sustain its weakest members. No sacrifice was considered too high a price to pay in the Emperor's service. This cult of sacrifice mindset continues to this day, and it permeates every aspect of the Death Korp's combat doctrine and organization. The character and tactical doctrine of the Krieg soldier was created by war. Having been raised only to fight, and having known nothing but constant battle, generations of troops came to see death in the name of the Emperor as their ultimate goal. This attitude remains even today, for Krieg guardsmen are always willing to die as a sacrifice to the God Emperor. For Krieg commanders, battles are won by the merciless application of overwhelming force. Their combat doctrines dictate that any battle where their capacity to fight and willingness to die exceeds that of their enemy is a battle already won. Everything else is merely a matter of time and attrition. The Death Korp's faith in the God Emperor is instilled in every soldier from an early age. These established patterns of worship serve to amplify the culture of willing sacrifice and militancy amongst the Krieg. The soldiers of Krieg are most famous for never flinching, even in the face of sudden death, and they see their deaths in war as a collective penance for the heresies of their ancestors so many years before. They are a dedicated trench and siege warfare force and perform best during wars of attrition. The Death Korp of Krieg regiments routinely volunteer for tours of service in the most dangerous war zones in the Imperium, which means they have earned a fierce reputation across the galaxy. They excel in trench and siege warfare, but have taken part in various different combat actions across many campaigns, such as the Taros campaign, the Third War for Armageddon, the Atria Wilderness campaign, and the Zorans III campaign, to name but a few. They can be counted on over most other imperial regiments to hold their ground, and when advancing prefer a massive offensive over an extended front with a rolling barrage of artillery support. Many Krieg regiments are adept raiders of entrenched positions, should a massed offensive be impractical or require the softening up of enemy positions before any such offensive can take place. The fact that the Death Korps of Krieg are known for unconditional loyalty and ruthlessness in prosecuting their wars mainly comes from the atomic purging that the 83rd Krieg Infantry under the command of Colonel Jurten inflicted on their own planet during the Krieg Civil War, an event that the Death Korps of Krieg in general and the 83rd Krieg Infantry Regiment in particular are deeply proud of. Regimental deployment. Regiments are raised on Krieg with great frequency. The form and composition of these regiments will differ according to the edicts of the Departamento Munitorum and the strategic needs of the moment. Krieg supplies the manpower, and the Departamento Munitorum organizes that manpower in various different types of regiments. Infantry regiments, mechanized infantry, and armored regiments are all known, but by far the most common use of Krieg's manpower is the siege regiments. The Death Korps' philosophy of total war reaches its ultimate expression within these regiments. But what makes Death Korps of Krieg regiments distinct is not their war gear, but their mentality. Regardless of their assigned role, they retain the Death Korps' strength of discipline, extreme endurance, expertise in trench warfare, and most notably their tolerance for high attrition rates and environmentally hazardous war zones. Regimental organization. Krieg regiments operate under the standard and recognizable Astra Militarum command structure, laid down by the Departamento Munitorum, with some minor local variation in insignia and designation. One example being that infantry sergeants are known by the title Watchmaster, while sergeants of the Death Riders companies are known as Ride Masters. Death Korps Officer. Death Korps officers, right up to the level of regimental command, typically lead and fight from the front. This is not so much a conscious decision as a simple expression of the Death Korps mentality, as every Krieg guardsman expects to fight and die for his emperor. To this end, officers commonly equip themselves for the front line with grenades, powerful sidearms, and either a chainsword or power sword. Command squads wear their squad insignia, a C for command, on their right shoulder. Officers' helmets typically bear an ornate imperial aquila. Unlike many other Imperial Guard regiments that draw their troops from worlds with a long-standing militarized culture, such as the Mordians, for example, Krieg itself has no standing aristocracy or hereditary officer class. Instead, its officers are drawn from the body of the rank and file. This means that the majority of the Death Korps officer cadre has been promoted through the ranks through a mixture of ability, seniority, and often by dint of simple survival. As veterans of the Death Korps' way of war, they have no regard for high casualties, which has led to morale problems where senior officers from Krieg have been placed in charge of non-Krieg regiments in a wider theatre of war. It is also a noticeable feature of Krieg officer battle dress that Krieg regiments do not issue medals or decorations, as Krieg soldiers view such rewards as insignificant. Bravery is expected and commonplace. Therefore, Death Korps guardsmen are not recognized with special rewards. It is also noteworthy that up to regimental command level, Death Korps officers often favor the expediency of a numerical designation instead of their own name. As such, the officers are referred to as Major Alpha, 1st Company, or Major Gamma, 3rd Company, and even Colonel 186 for the commander of the 186th Regiment. Death Korps Commissars. Commissars are present in Death Korps regiments as mandated by Departamento Munitorum regulations, being the only non-Krieg natives to serve in the Death Korps. Due to the relatively low rates of infraction and morale problems amongst Death Korps regiments, they more often find themselves employed in reining in any excess zeal on the part of the troops, and act as tactical advisors rather than enforcers of discipline. Commissars assigned to a Death Korps regiment are often well placed to become a voice of restraint for Death Korps officers, reinforcing the wider strategic goals of the war zone over the short-term victories through expenditure of men and material that might be needed later. In theatres of war, where Death Korps regiments must fight alongside other Imperial formations, commissars attached to Death Korps staff also find it prudent to act as the liaison between regimental commands where needed, as well as keeping a sharp eye that any acrimony between the Death Korps and other Imperial Guardsmen deployed to the same area does not become a problem. Death Korps Grenadier. Death Korps Grenadiers form a strong and sizable elite force within the larger Death Korps. Grenadiers are chosen from the ranks of infantry squads, usually by their watchmaster or a commissar, and recommended for appointment as a grenadier. They are also drawn from veterans and survivors of decimated squads and platoons. This is not a promotion, as grenadiers still carry the same rank, but they are regarded as having a seniority over rank-and-file guardsmen by dint of their experience and veteran status only. After serving with a grenadier squad for a time, Krieg guardsmen can then be returned to the infantry as a watchmaster. Casualty rates amongst grenadiers are very high, and although service in the heavy infantry is regarded as a privilege, it is also seen as a duty. A Krieg soldier appointed to a grenadier squad cannot refuse and adopts the skull face mask as a symbol of accepting his fate. Statistically, 8 out of 10 grenadiers are killed in action. The men behind the skull masks have accepted that they are essentially already dead. Death Korps Engineer. Like grenadiers, Death Korps engineers are infantry who support Krieg campaigns in a specialist role. The Engineering Corps provides expert knowledge, specializing in subterranean warfare, digging shafts, tunnels, and saps to undermine the enemy's strongpoints and launch surprise raids behind enemy lines. Krieg engineer squads carry a lot of technical equipment, as well as the standard equipment that is used by those of their profession. Death Korps Watchmaster. A Death Korps Watchmaster is the equivalent of a non-commissioned officer with the rank of sergeant in any other Imperial Guard regiments. Infantry platoons form the bulk of the Death Korps Siege Regiment's manpower. Each siege regiment consists of 5 companies, which are broken down into 10 infantry platoons and 1 heavy weapons platoon. Each company is led by a Death Korps captain, who is assisted by 1 veteran watchmaster. Each platoon consists of a command squad and up to 6 infantry squads. These squads are led by the watchmasters, who act as squad leaders. The watchmaster is assisted by an appointed senior guardsman, usually the longest-serving guardsman in the squad. Like their fellow guardsmen, watchmasters have been indoctrinated since birth to the martial traditions of the Corps. They are highly proficient with all the basic weapons of the Imperial Guard, and most especially with the bayonet, and favor the bayonet charge in battle. They fearlessly lead their squads across no man's land to storm enemy trenches and defenses, having no fear of death himself. A watchmaster demands and expects nothing less from their men. Death Korps Guardsmen. Each Death Korps soldier is fully trained to the standards expected for combat readiness, set down by the Departamento Munitorum, with particular emphasis placed on hazardous environmental survival and endurance, and physical and mental resilience. Proficiency in the use of all basic Imperial Guard weaponry types, as well as the use of grenades and explosives. A Death Korps soldier is also proficient in rapid and skilled construction of trench works and defenses. They are also exemplary hand-to-hand combatants, with bayonet drill being practiced from childhood. Accuracy is secondary in Death Korps weapons training to fire discipline, with the ability to main continuous fire en masse as part of an infantry formation considered to be of paramount importance. Death Korps guardsmen have a tendency to be highly insular, unemotional, and often taciturn to the point of silence outside of their duties. They also display a high degree of fatalism and an unusual morbidity of habit, such as carrying relics, ossuaries of bone, or other memento mori about their person as a form of religious observation to honor those who have fallen in the service of the God Emperor. Death Riders of Krieg. Superficially similar to the standard Rough Rider cavalry units, found amongst numerous other Imperial Guard regiments from worlds where riding mounts are commonplace. The Death Riders of Krieg are one of the most justly famous of the unique formations found within the Krieg forces. The Death Riders are also a direct result of Krieg's centuries-long civil war. Their most singular aspect is the nature of the Death Riders' mounts, the legendary Krieg steed, that is a highly adaptable form of the original Terran horse. This animal is now the product of extreme genetic engineering, tailored for strength, endurance, and aggression, with numerous additional biosculpting organs that allow them to survive on the most polluted and toxic battlefields unscathed. That grown on Krieg, under the auspices of the Adeptus Mechanicus, the animals are further augmented with subdermal organic armor, osmotic lungs, and a fully integrated drug injection system rigged with a potent mixture of stimulants, pain blockers, and other palliatives. The end result is that the Krieg steed is capable of incredible levels of endurance and environmental tolerance. The Death Riders form a special cadre within the Krieg regiments, and their inductees are chosen not only on the grounds of aptitude, but also for independent thought and initiative. Many future Death Corps officers are drawn from the ranks of their survivors. Death Riders are equipped with a variety of sidearms and saber blades, in addition to the signature explosive-tipped lance found in similar units. Death Corps Quartermaster. Death Corps regiments feature a most unusual and unique position, that of the Quartermasters. These individuals have replaced the battlefield medics found in most Imperial Guard regiments. Their role has its roots in Krieg's own war-torn past. In that merciless civil conflict, the recovery of arms and war gear of the fallen was of paramount importance, and field medicine and battlefield triage was a luxury that could be seldom afforded for the most seriously wounded. So it was that in Krieg's civil war, a soldier that could not be readily brought back to the fray, or at least retreat under his own power, was considered a liability, and to such unfortunates, the blessings of the Emperor's peace was given, an honourable field execution. This onerous task, along with the recovery of a soldier's equipment, was the responsibility of the Quartermaster cadre, and remains so to the present day. Quartermasters are chosen from the ranks of the Death Corps, by selection during training, particularly for their faith in the God Emperor, as well as their mental aptitude, and occasionally from individuals who have survived against all odds. These individuals are then given additional training in field medicine and extensive indoctrination in the specific beliefs of Krieg's sect of the Imperial cult. Uniform. The heavy greatcoat is the most distinctive part of the Death Corps' uniform, a warm and waterproof coat made locally on Krieg of thick cloth in a variety of colours. Double-breasted with brass buttons, the greatcoat itself can provide limited protection, but is further reinforced against biological and chemical agents through a chemical impregnating process which gives it a pungent smell. The soldier's regimental tag is a distinctive colour and shape, such as a red square, which is assigned by high command prior to a campaign and stitched to his greatcoat's collar. Matching trousers are held close to the legs through leg bindings, while the standard issue low marching boots use hobnailed soles for grip and include an anti-risk and dubbing kit which can be rubbed in to seal against chemical attacks. The standard issue Mark 9 helmet is made of plasteel and constructed to ensure a good fit around the gas mask. Ventilation is provided through a top spine, which has its own internal filter to keep out biological and chemical agents. Plasteel shoulder pads are buckled to the greatcoat and embossed with rank insignia in the case of watchmasters and higher ranks. When worn together with his respirator, a Death Corps soldier in full uniform is completely sealed against any contaminated environment. In contrast to the typical Death Corps mindset of conformity over individuality, as per Departamento Munitorum regulations, officer uniforms must be distinguishable from the rank and file, so that they may provide inspiration and authority on the battlefield. They are therefore often tailor-made for the individual and produced from superior quality material. As many officers will come from Death Rider units, they will also incorporate elements of their previous uniform, such as the tall riding boots and breastplate. Officers wear a variation of the Mark IX helmet with distinctive decoration and a red sash for additional battlefield identification purposes. Personal gear. The 3-piece respirator unit issued to every Death Korps guardsman is what gives them the ability to operate in any toxic environment. The first piece, a regulator unit, is carried inside a leather satchel buckled to his webbing and is the most complex part of the system. A battery-powered fan draws in air, which is passed through particle filters and air quality samplers before being pumped up through an air pipe into the guardsman's gas mask. An exterior display panel provides information on the regulator's functionality and the toxicity of the surrounding air, while the use of a positive pressure breathing method means the constant flow of air will prevent toxic particles from entering through any compromised sections. The regulator also includes antidote chemicals, which can be introduced into the incoming air and a water supply, supplemented by soluble stimulants and nutrient tablets, connected to the gas mask by a separate pipe. Both air and water pipes are protected by an exterior hose that screws into the gas mask through a brass breather valve, which contains an additional filter and non-return valve. The gas mask also consists of a bag, a screw attachment for the breather valve, and eyepieces made of a double layer of toughened glass treated with anti-fogging compound. Staff officers, who will spend most of their time inside sealed command bunkers, are issued lightweight respirators, which lack the large regulator unit, and so are useful for only short exposure times. Leather webbing with carrying straps and pouches allows the Death Korps infantry to carry additional gear including maintenance kits, replacement filters, and antidote vials. A leather backpack buckles to the webbing shoulder straps and provides additional carrying capacity. A bedroll, waterproof shelter half, and dry tin canister for storing perishables against the environment. A small entrenching tool is also issued to all Krieg guardsmen and worn on the belt, with larger mattocks and shovels provided as needed. Death Korps officers are issued a small refractor field generator, typically disguised as jewelry or decoration such as a gorget for their own personal protection. End quote. Now I would like to address one wee issue that sometimes comes up, well, quite regularly actually. For too many in the fandom, these men of Krieg are viewed as insane, suicidal, and utterly inept. Now I hope the quotations can show that they are a very special regiment, but let me disavow you of this misconception right here and right now. The Death Korp of Krieg are veterans. They are elite. You heard me. They are elite. They use up men, but they do not throw them away. They are veterans of a score, or much more, of live-fire battles before they ever step foot on a transport to a battlefield somewhere across the stars. They are already veterans. Now there is a huge difference between a killing general and a murdering one, and the generals of Krieg would, to anyone outside of their culture, definitely be named the latter, murdering generals. But why is this? For as over-the-top and scientifically ridiculous as Warhammer is, when you confine your view of the setting into motivations, then in many ways it is quite logical. Horrific, but logical. There is a huge misconception that the officers and rank-and-file soldiery of the Death Korps of Krieg are suicidal and relish the extermination of their forces, and that they throw them away like refuse. And this is simply not the case. So please disavow yourself of this delusion. What people sometimes wrestle with is the difference between Krieg officers wishing their men to die and the lack of any value being attributed to the individual. And I am actually quite grateful for this situation, as repetitive as it may be sometimes. It shows that the value of life in our own time is so high that the perspectives of the denizens of the grim darkness of the far future is so perplexing as to cause confusion and then uncertainty and even lore disparity. So get one thing straight, please. Krieg officers do not want their men to die, no more than any other officer of any other regiment. The difference merely comes from their acceptance of it, though. To the officers of Krieg, there can be no surrender, no retreat, and no failure, for they fight for not only their own immortal souls, but those of every single person who has been born on Krieg since the days of the Feast of Ascension, where their leadership turned to rebellion against the Imperium. Krieg has not been forgiven for this infraction, this great heresy, and it cannot be forgiven until the Emperor once again walks amongst his people, for only from him would they ever accept any form of forgiveness. Only he. But also please bear in mind that they are not and never can be Space Marines. During the siege of Vrax and other encounters, they were pushed back and broken multiple times. To my knowledge, they are far more zealous than any regiment bar one, but they are still human. They will run if placed under enough pressure. They will die nearly as easily as any other human. They are rugged and fanatical, but they are not Space Marines, who literally know no fear. For the visions of them charging Khorne berserkers may be apt, they would do it, but them winning is not. They are, for all of the hype and horror, merely humans. And when the Astartes of the Chaos Gods arrive, they butcher them like children as much as they would any other regiment. The Death Corps just stand for much longer, but they cannot win, not really. So adore them for what they are, the horrifying, twisted, broken mirrored reflection of humanity, what we could become if everything we hold dear falls to pieces. A cautionary tale, not a goal, because trust me, nobody currently alive would want to be in the Death Corps of Krieg. Now, no matter what you do today, do try to make some time for fun. Toodaloo.